Okay, we'll get started because we have plenty to get through today. So thank you for joining us and welcome to the final webinar in our 2020 series. It's been quite a year and in some ways it seems like it's gone quite quickly and quite slowly at the same time. But here we are at the end of our automation series. So we've covered a few different themes throughout the year. We started off with automation fundamentals back in March, it was now. And since then, we've done a few different ones. We've covered marketing and sales alignment. We then did lead management, and then most recently, ABM. But today, we're going to be discussing something that's probably essential for any organization looking to improve their customer experience. And that's using data to personalize campaigns for your audience. So again, thank you for the people that have joined us for the previous webinars in the series, and then again today. And to those that are new today, we hope you get some useful insights out of what we're about to share with you that you can maybe take away and adopt at your organization. A few housekeeping things just to let you know about as we normally do. So this will be a 45-minute webinar. There will be an opportunity for Q&A, and anyone who wants to hang around at the end, myself, Natasha and Adrian will hang around to answer any questions. But of course, drop questions in the Q&A throughout the session, and I'll put those to Natasha and Adrian as we're going along. And finally, this will be recorded. This webinar is being recorded at the moment, and we'll distribute it as part of our post-webinar comms. We'll put it on our website, on social. So I just wanted to make sure that you're fully aware of that. So your presenters today will be Adrian and Natasha of Marketing Cube. Adrian's been involved in all the webinars throughout this series. So for those of you attending that don't already know Adrian, he's the CEO and co-founder of Marketing Cube. So welcome, Adrian. Good to have you with us.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everybody, and welcome.
And we're also grateful to have Natasha with us today. So Natasha is our strategic consultant in Australia. She works with our clients on developing their customer experience strategy. Before starting with Marketing Cube, Natasha worked most recently with Lend-Lease in leading some digital transformation projects with them. And before that, with the likes of Royal Bank of Scotland and Barclays in the UK. So welcome, Natasha. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Matt.
And I'm Matt Hemsley, so I'm the marketing manager at Marketing Cube and will be hosting the session today. So for the first part of today's webinar, we'll be looking at personalization trends, what we're seeing in the industry, and the impact that they're having on the consumer and the business. Then we'll share some best-in-class examples of how organizations are using data to drive personalized experiences that ultimately support the growth of that organization. And they'll hopefully provide a bit of inspiration for you. And we'll start to get into ideas of how you can use data to create better customer experiences, following a framework that we actually developed and use at Marketing Cube with some of our clients. So with no further ado, we'll get right into it, and I'll hand over to Natasha to get things rolling.
Great, thanks, Matt. And hello, welcome to this webinar. Thank you for your time today. Today is all about personalisation, and personalisation is really about creating a more personal and a more human experience across your brand and your customer journey. I've got a stat there from McKinsey & Co, or a statement, which says that personalisation will be the prime driver of marketing success within 5 years. So it's no wonder that personalisation really is front of mind for marketing leaders and CMOs. From a consumer point of view, again, some stats from McKinsey & Co. When you look at personalisation, the impact it's having on us as consumers, it's quite significant, with 86% of consumers saying that personalisation has some impact on what they purchase, and about 25% or a quarter admit that personalisation significantly influences their buying decisions. So these are really big numbers, really big stats, and we actually expect this trend to continue to rise. But from a business perspective, personalisation it's having an impact on our marketing strategies, on our customer experience, on our campaigns, on our people, our teams, and the talent and the skill set that we have in our teams. And only 15% of CMOs believe that they're actually on the right track with personalisation. So that's quite a scary stat to think that 85% of CMOs are not confident in their personalisation efforts, or aren't doing any personalisation. But of those personalisation leaders, the ones who are leading the way, they found ways to increase revenue by 5 to 15% using personalisation. And they've seen 10 to 30% increases in marketing spend efficiencies. So you can clearly see that from a business point of view, there are benefits, both from a CX perspective and a revenue perspective.
Yeah, cool. So I think what we do know is that customers, yourself, you decide in a microsecond whether a message warrants more of your time or not. And we talk a lot about customer centricity and about personas and putting yourself in your customer's shoes, kind of about customer journey mapping. And a lot of that really is all about developing buyer situational awareness. So who's your buyer? Do we really understand them? And where are they? What is their situation? What is their situation? What are they doing now? And the ability to provide something compelling, relevant, and timely to that buyer in that situation. In an increasingly digital purchase cycle, I guess the opportunity cost of things like email fatigue or becoming irrelevant and somebody opting out, that cost's just increasing. So it is really important that we get this right. And so we've simplified things, as we try to do. We simplified sort of this personalization into 3 different elements and 3 key areas. And the first is really the relevance of that email, SMS, that communication, even that call. But it's getting the message across at the right time, in the right channel, so getting it to the right place, just when somebody really needs it. And that's what you're looking for. I guess is that feeling of, okay, that was perfect timing. It's just what I needed to know at that moment in time, or this really helps me to make a decision. This is really helpful content, really helpful information. Then the content itself. So, tailored content that either provides you with the information that you need, that you're looking for, helps you to make a decision, helps you in what you're trying to do next. So that content is really important. And also I think there's that element of the content being personalized and relevant to me. You can engender trust through better personalization. The brand is listening as opposed to the brand is ignoring me. Engenders a lot of trust. And so that the combination of that relevance and content, that buyer situational awareness, and the content itself creates this ability to engender this trust. And then I think the last point is element is about being easy to do business with. So, how can is this saving me time? Is it helping me not to look for something? Is it helping me along my process? And whether that's, a click to chat or ability to log a service request, a pre-filled form, an easy click to or call to action that helps me to do something, a webinar reminder with the detail inside it so that I can access the webinar easily. All those sorts of things are about kind of engaging and being easy to do business with, simplification of the buyer or the consumer's life. Having said all that, what we don't want to be is overly creepy. So, or making sure that it's not creepy. So you can go too far. And there is a bit of this sense of kind of not overstepping the mark. How many of you wonder whether your phone or your Google Home is listening to you and then surfacing, ads? I guess time will tell on that one. I keep hearing denials by Google. But there's also some other elements. If there's, whether something's annoying or not. I mean, people talk a lot about those annoying ads that keep retargeting you, even after you've purchased something, or a salesperson that just seemed to know a little bit too much and was kind of awkward with that information and how they approached a call and kind of overstepped the line. There are examples of where you just have to treat the information carefully and again, understand kind of the context of the data that you have and how you're going to use that to be helpful and to change the customer experience in a way that doesn't overstep the line. And the last thing I'm really going to touch on, it's a huge topic as well, but it's around data trust. And so this is about an equitable exchange of data. How much are you asking for versus how much you're giving? If you're asking someone to give, how trusted are you as a data host? And then this question about kind of integrity with the data. So most companies have integrity in their values list, and most customers expect you to essentially treat their data with that same integrity. And they'll come down super hard on companies that they feel or are perceived not to be treating data with integrity. And you can look at some of the tarnish on the brand of kind of a Facebook, or if a company loses data or whatever, the impact that has. So all of that really just goes into this sort of, okay, we can get this data, we can use this data, we can connect the data, but we have to be super careful with it and really conscious of how we're using it.
Okay, so I want to shift the focus to trends and shifts in personalisation. Some of these you may be quite familiar with, and others are a little bit more future state. So the first one is trigger-based personalisation. So this is really shifting from something that's marketing and business-led, so personalisation that's led by marketing or the business, to trigger-based personalisation. So in other words, moving from personalization that you have planned based on current information or data or CRM contact data that you have, to personalization that's purely based on user engagement. So fundamentally, you're wanting to deliver, those more unique experiences based on the prospects or the consumers or the customers or clients' engagement, rather than a predefined journey with some, personalization sprinkled over the top. The next one is about shifting the focus from online personalization to personalizing the person-to-person or the face-to-face experience or offering. I know this is huge in the property industry, for example. So ensuring that the experience that a prospect has online and the personalization that they're experiencing online matches the experience they have in the sales center. So it's trying to bridge that gap between not only online virtual personalization, but also the face-to-face personalization that you would have when you have that direct contact with a salesperson or call center or the like. And Adrian, I think you're going to talk about empathy and machine learning.
Oh, sorry, Nat. Thank you. So on the machine learning front, I think machine learning was kind of a sort of a wild frontier, and no one sort of seemed to know where it was going. I think there are still some pretty crazy ideas out there. I know Amazon, for example, has just patented new features that will enable their Echo device to understand if someone has nasal tones, which might indicate that they had a stuffy nose or might need, some suitable medication, for example. But I think there are also much more tangible ways of using machine learning that have come into play now, and some of them are around, making search easier, and helping you to find things in a kind of a consumer environment. Within kind of the B2B space, I think we're seeing a lot more trend towards helping between using machine learning to help businesses be more easy to do business with. So easier to navigate around a website, easier to find what you want, less forms or administration or pre-filled forms or administration, and even shortcuts in kind of how a process works. It's kind of easier to get to different parts of the organization. So almost thinking about the customer journey or the buyer journey, and using machine learning to introduce kind of micro savings in their time or their effort, and not necessarily the whole transaction, but just little shortcuts that they can do along the way. And I think that leads us to kind of the customer data side of things, which I think people have, speaking kind of data really as being like the new oil. There's a huge kind of increase in budget allocation for data enhancement. And people really want to focus on the timeliness of that data. But the important thing is really the data in context of the experience that you're trying to deliver. So a lot of organizations, I think, went and tried to get the 360-degree view of their customer, the ultimate nirvana of knowing everything you needed to know in one place to be able to deliver experiences everywhere. And I think, that's been massively difficult for most organizations to achieve. More realistic is understanding the critical data elements that you need to be able to deliver the experience that you want to be able to deliver, especially if those are around a really important transaction or time in the buyer journey. So it is more about salespeople knowing how leads are engaging and how they might have engaged on the webinar before they make their next call, or understanding critical transaction data, like they've just become a new customer to trigger the correct communications, or there's a contract end date, or they've just become a VIP. So it's about really, I think, connecting the data points to the correct places in the organization and channels to support the customer experience overall that you're trying to deliver. I think the final area we're going to talk about was kind of a battle for AI talent. And we use this, I think it's AI and machine learning are used quite interchangeably these days, but really with this kind of personalization of these moments and ecosystems that kind of require very different skill sets, we're seeing a couple of things. One is a massive demand for that kind of talent, largely by sort of large organizations and vendors. But the other thing that's happening is that these large vendors, kind of the likes of kind of your Oracles of the world, are packaging the machine learning and the AI into their products and making it accessible for their customers to use as part of the products that the marketers are using on a day-to-day basis.
All right, thanks for that, Adrian and Natasha. We have our first poll question for you today, our first of two. So in terms of those trends that we were just discussing, what do you think will be the most important in enabling your business to increase personalization over the next 2 to 3 years? So I've just launched the poll. Hope you see it on screen. So some of those trends that we just mentioned. So we've got predictive personalization using AI, offline channel personalization, data management, and content strategy, another one. So if we're talking about wanting to personalize as much as we're saying we want to, we obviously need to have the content to be able to do it. And the last one, the upskilling or AI talent. So upskilling your current team or investing in hiring additional talent. All right, so as you can see here, vast majority of respondents went for better data management. It's obviously something that Adrian just touched on, and I'm sure you're obviously experiencing your organizations, and we see it often with clients when we're onboarding, and it's sort of data hygiene and cleaning data is one of the first things we look at and look to improve in an organization. Often you see data silos and disparate data in different places, and bringing it all together is obviously key to then enabling that personalization. So yeah, very understandable why so many people went for that. A couple went for content strategy. So like I mentioned, yeah, to sort of enable all this personalization, you need to produce the content. So understandable as well. And then a small percentage for the upskilling of AI or AI talent. So thanks for your responses there. And we'll move on now. So I think Natasha is going to share some great examples of organizations, really personalizing their customer experiences. There's a couple of really cool ones in here. So over to you, Natasha.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so the first one is a company called Good Pair Days. So those of us who are wine connoisseurs or think we are wine connoisseurs in the group may be familiar with Good Pair Days. Their tagline or mission, I guess, is discovering wines paired to your taste and delivered to your door. But what's great about Good Pair Days is their focus and the huge investment they've obviously made in accumulating data and learning about your preferences. That's their model. So once they accumulate that data, learn about your preferences, they can then provide you with personalized recommendations. If you're not familiar with Good Pair Days, I strongly recommend that you go to their website and complete the quiz. We've actually got a few screenshots from the quiz. It's quite a detailed quiz, so we've only got a few here. But you can see that, it's a really smart and interesting way of gathering the data. And even the way that they ask the questions, they're using really savvy and smart questions. So there's a question there around, Vegemite and toast. And how much butter do you put? So clearly it's nothing to do with Vegemite, but it's all around your tastes. Are you a Chardonnay drinker and a big oaky buttery Chardonnay drinker, or are you more aligned to a Sauv Blanc? Questions about the type of chocolate you like. They could have asked, do you like white, red or rosé? But they're doing it in a very interesting way, asking, do you prefer milk chocolate, dark chocolate? So I think it's a bit of a lesson here for us marketers, or a reminder, I should say, to think about the way that we're asking for data. And I appreciate that for some of us, especially in the B2B space, some of these questions do not fit with the tone of voice of, and our brand. But just, think about the way that you're asking for data, and think about ways in which you can make that a little bit more interesting, or at least a little bit more engaging. And here at Good Pair Days, you give them your details at the end of this quiz, which is a really fun, engaging quiz. And you're presented with, recommendations. You're presented with 3 wines that they recommend based on the data that you've given them. So clearly this is a very sophisticated way to gather all that data and, and present product recommendations based on the data in a really fun and savvy type of way. So I think this is top of my list in terms of personalization. And then following on from this recommendation, the experience gets better, and they keep asking you questions, and the emails that you get, the communications that you receive, it's all personalized to your taste. So if you haven't done it before, I highly recommend doing the quiz. And Carnival, I think Adrian's going to speak to this one.
Yeah, this was one that, thanks Nat, this was one that we learned about at Oracle Open World, and it seems a bit strange to be talking about cruise ships now. It's been out of action for so long, but the experience is still pretty amazing. What this is it's basically a medallion cruise. And when you sign up for your medallion cruise, you get this kind of waterproof, always you could wear kind of anywhere type of medallion that you could put in a bracelet or on a chain or whatever. But it's a super smart medallion. It's a super smart piece of kit. And what it does is it basically turns kind of this cruise ship into this smart ship. It has thousands of sensors all over it, all on sort of every deck. So it's kind of like it's got this 3D model of exactly where you are. And then it uses all of that information to kind of, and what you want to do, where you are, kind of going back to that situational awareness to make your life a lot easier. So so you've got this automatic check-in because you've got your medallion. You could just walk right through. When you get to your cabin, the door opens. When you order a drink, it knows where you are on the ship and gets the drink delivered to you no matter where you are. And you can, purchase things with it all the way around. So you haven't got to buy anything. You haven't got to use any cash or anything. So it's just taking that experience to the next level by making all those little micro inconveniences better. And so, I think we've got a short video on kind of what it looks like. But I think it's a pretty cool use of technology and really making people's lives easier.
Last year at CES, smart homes were all the rage. This year, it's smart vacations. Cruise giant Carnival Corporation today unveiled the Ocean Medallion, a wearable device that personalizes a host of guest experiences, including sophisticated wayfinding, food and beverage on demand, an array of interactive gaming, and more. Hungry or thirsty? Forget waiting in line. With the Medallion, your order finds you. With the technology, guests can make purchases and access their staterooms without a card, touch, or tap. just like keyless door entry on the world's finest cars. The medallion interacts with thousands of invisible sensors to personalize the vacation experience in ways never before possible. Similar to music and TV streaming services, the technology learns guests' likes and dislikes to anticipate what they'll want and when they'll want it. The Ocean Medallion will be free to cruisers beginning in 2017 on Regal Princess from Carnival's Princess Cruises brand. From CES, I'm John Bustecker.
Great, thanks, Matt. You know, and I suppose that it's always a challenge when you kind of get these consumer-focused experience changes, and you try to think about, you know, what do they mean? What do they mean to you in the context of your business? But you know, I guess my challenge to you is, if you had a magic medallion, how would you use it within your business to kind of improve or make those little kind of micro pain points go away, or even deliver a better experience across your, you know, your individual buying processes?
Thanks, Adrian. And the last best in class, I think you can't have a personalisation webinar or discussion without talking about Netflix. They really are a leader in personalisation. You know, not only do they show you recommendations based on content you've watched, they even personalize film covers. They give prominence to different actors and films that you've engaged with in the past. So every move Netflix makes is driven by this, you know, huge, vast amount of data that they're getting from our engagement. They actually run about 250 A/B tests a year. So they run tests on, you know, they know when you hit play, they know when you hit pause, they know when you stop halfway through, or, you know, when you don't finish something, when you click the plus button. So they use all this data, all this engagement data, and they harvest all this information and data to personalize the experience. And what's interesting is that Netflix actually don't factor age or gender in their recommendation system. So it's purely based on engagement. So they don't even fall back on those demographic or that demographic type of data. Their personalization or the experience and the personalization of the experience is based on your engagement. So yeah, they're definitely best in class, and they're a true leader in personalization. Okay, so I guess that's great, and that's good to know about all these, you know, amazing organisations who may have endless budgets and who play in the consumer space. But we wanted to look at how you can increase personalisation and drive a better CX, you know, regardless of the type of organisation you're in. Understanding your customers and designing those type of personalised experiences does translate into CX value and business value and revenue. So we've got some stats here that show that for the CX leaders over a 5-year period, they actually saw a share price performance increase of 43% compared to the laggards, the CX laggards, who saw a decrease of 34%. So, you know, just looking at these numbers, it's something that I would certainly add to a business case or some sort of supporting case to increase your use of personalization or the foundational projects that you need to put in place to increase personalization, because good CX literally equals good business value and revenue. So often for us marketers, you know, we're so excited to try new things, and we're so, you know, we're in the excitement to try and personalize the experience for our customers. We often leap into execution mode, and we think, right, what can we personalize? How can we personalize it quickly? But I would urge you to pause and really to take your personalization to the next level. We recommend developing either a marketing automation strategy or a personalization plan or roadmap. Kind of stepping back from the day-to-day, stepping out of that execution campaign mode and thinking about what strategically do I need to put in place in order to enhance the customer experience and deliver more personalization? So at Marketing Cube, we've developed a framework called the Design for Automation framework. Some of you may have heard of this framework before. It has 6 pillars, which you can see on the screen there, but it's really it's a framework to connect your marketing strategy with Eloqua capabilities, so that you can create those, those experiences and enhance the customer experience and start, creating more personalized experiences across your customer journey. We've got a few tips now. So some, hopefully useful tips to take away so that you can get more personal, so that you can start delivering, start thinking about the customer experience and how to personalize and enhance that customer experience. So tip 1 goes without saying, but it's understand your audience, but really understand your audience. You may have customer segmentation. So if you do have customer segmentation, look to evolve that into personas. Develop those key target personas from your segmentation. If you already have personas, ensure that they're current, ensure that they're up to date. Often personas may have been developed a few years ago and they end up in, they used to end up in someone's desks. We don't really have desks anymore. But they end up somewhere that's not usable. So if you have personas, revisit them, ensure that they're current, ensure that they're up to date, and look to, to reinvigorate those personas. And perhaps you could do an exercise called empathy mapping, to really step into your customer's shoes and further expand those personas. The next tip is to map the personas through your customer journey. This is critical. If you have personas, the next step is to take each of those personas and map the customer journey for each of those personas. And from that, you're going to get so many insights into those pain points, into, those celebration moments across the journey, into the areas across the journey that you need to focus on and enhance specific to each persona. So if you've got your personas, ensure you map them across your customer journey.
I think a key part of that customer journey is to understand the data that you need at each step to deliver the experience that you're trying to deliver. And the first place to look for that data is to have a look and see what you've already got. And so that's really an interrogation into the data. May not just be in your marketing automation platform. You might want to dig into the CRM as well. And when you've done the CRM, you might want to have a look at maybe some back-end systems or some of that more transactional data. You don't have to bring all the transactional data in. You just have to bring the key points of that transactional data in to deliver the experience that you want to. But maybe you already you have enough to determine, a new customer, a warranty end date, an end of subscription, a VIP customer. So you could just start to tailor your communications based on the data points that you already have. And then I think that kind of leads to the next one, and that's about getting the data that you need. So once you understand the data points that you really need, you understand what you've got, then you understand the gaps, and you could start to put in place some strategies to get the data that you need to deliver the experiences you want. And I think going back to what Nat was saying before, kind of the icing on that cake is asking that question. Well, ideally, not even asking the question at all, gathering it in a way that means you don't have to ask. But if you do have to ask it in an interesting way or something that's part of a process, so that you're not, you're moving away from, if you could complete this 25-page questionnaire, we'll know everything about you we need to deliver the experience we want to be able to deliver, and more to, periodic, timely, small questions that, unbeknownst to your buyer, are really helping you to deliver an exceptional customer experience.
The next tip is all about designing for personalization and planning your personalization approach. So, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't do everything all at once. You probably don't have the systems and the processes and the data in place to do it all at once. So really plan out your personalization approach. Consider a phased approach. Consider, you know, building personalized campaigns or personalized comms or experiences, and starting with a MVP, a base level approach, and then expanding on that in the future. Consider, like what Adrian said, you know, consider the existing data you have today and the gaps. What data do you need to personalize the experience? Obviously, tie everything back to an objective or a goal. It's really important with every type of experience that you're planning to have a clear objective of what it is that you want to achieve, so that, you know, obviously you can look to measure the success of that experience or that program. Create a content plan, you know, include with personalization experiences, always include a generic experience, because you'll have to fall back on that generic experience if you don't have the data in place to personalize the experience. So always have a generic layer, but then add to that with more personalized layers. And the last tip is, it's all about test, learn, optimize, repeat. Test, learn, optimize, repeat. So like I said before, ensure that you have those program objectives in place. Ensure that you outline what the KPIs are at the start of each program or each experience or each campaign, and plan out what you can test and when. So at the beginning of a program, you may only be able to test some very small features, and that's fine. You know, testing different imagery, for example, testing different CTA buttons, for example, testing slightly different wording, using dynamic content to test content. So think about your program of works and think about what you can test across, you know, a 12-week period or a 6-month period, and actually put these tests in place. And obviously, once you've done that testing, learn from the testing, you know, review, analyze, learn, understand what worked, what didn't, and then obviously optimize your campaign, your future campaigns based on the test results.
All right, thanks a lot, Natasha and Adrian. We're nearly at the end of the webinar now. We've got the last sort of couple of minutes here. We've done quite well for time today, squeezing it all in. We often go over, so good job, guys. But before we do head off, we have a last poll question for you now. It'd be great to know where you feel you and your organization need to focus efforts and prioritize, particularly over the next 6 months. So what do you see as the most immediate pressing areas that you need to address? So hopefully you can see this on screen again. So I've put here select up to 3, but scrap that. It's multiple choice, and I think select as many as you think you need to address in the next few months. So these are the sort of relate to the tips that Natasha and Adrian have just shared there. So we've got segmentation and persona development, customer journey mapping. So you're obviously mapping your personas to their journeys, the existing database alignment to personas, determining and filling data gaps to obviously fill those gaps so you can enable that personalization, and that personalized plan that Natasha spoke about. So, you know, are you looking at a phased approach, which would probably be best practice? What are your goals? What content you have? What content you need, etc. So I think it'd be quite interesting to sort of compare what you're thinking with what your sort of fellow marketers on the webinar are thinking, and see if you have similar sort of challenges. So a bit of a mix, to be honest. Customer journey mapping has come out on top, just over segmentation and persona development. So I suppose that would probably suggest that you might have some existing personas. You've already got your personas in place, and at the stage you're at now is looking to map those to a journey map before taking the next step. But there's also, you can see there's a decent number of people answered with existing database alignment to personas, determining and filling data gaps, and the personalization plan as well. So I think, yeah, good mix across the board there, which is, again, understandable. It's quite a big task and project to and an ongoing thing that you never reach an end state, do you? Obviously, it's like a constant improvement when it comes to personalization. So thank you again for sharing those with us. Okay, well, thanks very much for being with us today. And if you've joined us on all the webinars in this series, an extra big thank you. But for those that haven't, or even if you did but want to watch the replays from any of those webinars, you can find them on our website in the resources section. And we do actually have something we'd like to share with you in the post-webinar comms, which we'll share with you next week once I've put together the recording. But that's our design for automation assessment that relates to the framework that Natasha spoke about. So Natasha, I wonder if you wanted to just give a quick explanation of what the design for automation assessment is and what people can get out of actually taking that assessment.
Yeah, sure, Matt. So the design for automation assessment is quite a brief assessment to help understand your marketing automation maturity level. So really it's helping understand what that maturity level is and identifying where the gaps and opportunities are. So we ask questions across the 6 pillars of the design for automation framework. And from that, we can understand or better understand the areas that you, I guess, need to focus and prioritize across your marketing automation strategy and planning. So yeah, it will be in next week's webinar email that Matt will send out. And I encourage you to take the assessment. It's the mini assessment that we'll be sending out, so it's a shorter assessment. You will still get results, but if you are interested in doing a more in-depth assessment with us after you've completed the mini one, then please reach out to me. I'm always happy to organize that. And you know, we can do the assessment and look at the areas of focus and those improvement areas in more detail.
Cool, thanks, Natasha. I think we'll hang around now, Natasha, Adrian, and I. If there's any questions you have, drop them in the Q&A and we can respond to those. But for those of you who want to shoot off to your next meeting, thanks again for taking the time to be with us. Take care, and we will see you in the new year. Have a great Christmas and New Year. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.